And we are live. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today in the Art of Estate Planning. I am delighted to let you know that I have a special guest, John Cachia from the Australian Financial Wealth Group, joining me today to talk about his journey with offering estate planning to his clients. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Tara. Appreciate it. Thanks
So,
for having
John,
me on.
oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for giving up your time to join us. So you're dialing in from lockdown Melbourne, is that right?
Yeah, so I'm in the hot zone postcodes as well as the lockdown in Victoria. So we've been in a bit of a interesting period, both from a personal and a business side of things. But I guess we're just trying to obey the rules so that we can protect the vulnerable, especially. It's pretty crazy what's going on at the moment. So, we just got to do what we need to do and try and keep each other healthy and safe. So,
Well, I'm very grateful that you have made time to join us in the live this week because I think I wanted to have you on as a guest because I really love the way that you approach estate planning in your business and for your clients. And I thought it would just be inspirational, perhaps, for some of the financial advisors who are looking at doing more with estate planning for their clients, or even people who are still doing a fair bit with estate planning. I think it's really helpful just to sort of hear what others are doing because it is a bit of a new frontier for financial advisors taking the lead in estate planning. So the more we can talk about it and share ideas, the better. So I'd love for you to share your journey today. Before we jump into that, I just want to check, are you happy for people to ask you questions as we go?
yeah, go for it. They can ask me anything they like.
Okay, well, so John, tell us a bit about yourself. Tell us about your business, how you got into financial planning. Let's hear your story.
So mine is probably not your most common one. So my cousin owned a pretty decent risk-based business based in Melbourne, and I was 14 and 9 months, and coming from a working-based background, it was 14, 9 months. Go get some work experience. Go get a job. So I called my cousin, who I was quite close with at the time, and I said, "Listen, can you go get me a job?" And I thought it was pretty cool, financial planner. I just learn about things. And coming into, we're talking about 2002, 2003, getting into a financial planning practice in risk-based business, and seeing as a 14-year-old the amount of dollars even on applications that we were talking about here. We're talking about, life insurance in the millions, this, that. It was just, for me, it was like, wow, oh my gosh, there's this totally different world. For a 14-year-old, it was like seeing $50 was big, whereas, seeing these large numbers it was pretty, big for me. But I started to just really like what I did. I saw the impacts that we can make. I saw claims getting paid, and I felt really, really, I felt that I was making an impact, and I think that became my obsession. And I think that from there, we're talking, from 14, I think I was 18 or 19 when I got my financial planning license. So kind of stuck in the role, after school, going and doing work every holidays,
Wow.
summer holidays, kind of doing it all. I think I wrapped up my dip FP, in the meantime. And so I was, as you can see, just pretty much a workaholic when it kind of came. But I loved it because I was just making such an impact. But as I developed, I started becoming also probably really client centric and really like client obsessed. And I know this is kind of a common thing with, probably good business practices, as they just, become obsessed with the client. And so coming from a risk perspective, it was really like when these checks were getting paid and these events were happening, it was usually a document like a will or a binding nom that it would kind of go to. Yeah. And it was just that. That's where the relationship ended. And they may, if it was life insurance, they may come on, you might do superannuation advice or whatever it may be. But I thought there was more to this. Yeah. And so as years went by, I tried to just understand the impact that we can make. And so what I started to do was, especially in the estate planning side of things, is start to understand what are we actually doing in estate planning, which was the easiest thing. Yeah, it's not a will, it's not a binding nom, it's not power of attorneys. It's much more than that. We're talking about the transition of wealth from one family to the next. We're talking about controls. We're talking about, a lot of peace of mind that we can give individuals. So, I think that I just started to learn a little bit more, and actually, the more I learned about it, I understood that planning shouldn't be the last thing that a financial planner does. It should actually be the first one. And we're obsessed with because we're obsessed with financial planners about, like, when it comes to investments. Like, think about when we talk about superannuation or retirement. It's like, let's reverse engineer it, Mr. and Mrs. Client. Yeah, how much do you need at retirement? How much do you need to live on? We're not talking about next year's stuff. We're talking about the stuff when they need the money. So ultimately, what are we talking about when we're talking about building wealth? We're talking about improving their financial situation for not just them, but for their kids, their grandkids, this, that, and the other. And I think that this also coincides with what's going on in Australia as well, too, where there's this massive intergenerational wealth, that's going on at the moment. We've got the baby boomers that are going to start passing on wealth. So, it was really, for me, both a business opportunity that I was looking at, but also about just, this makes sense to me. And I think that what I had problems with, more importantly, Tara, was I think licensees weren't geared for where I was kind of going. So I was always pushing the envelope. And what I mean by this is that when we talk about looking at estate planning as the first goal, let's talk about something that's really basic. Like, you look at a client profile or a fact find for a client, and they've got $100,000 in their own money and they've got superannuation. Now, in I would say my licensee or basic training, it would have been super or non-super, and we would have stayed there.
Yeah.
But it's much more than that. It's like, what's the 100,000 for? What are we doing every year? What's it all for? Is this for the kids? So I had an example just recently, and this is how far we've got it. So both on high incomes, very, very decent superannuation amount. They've got surplus spending. They're like your perfect financial advisory client. Yeah?
Yeah.
And I said, you could retire now. You could stop. Like, they don't need to work anymore. What's this all for? Always comes up. We've got a daughter. She's 16. We want to make sure she's set up well. What do you want to do? I want to buy her a house. I want to do this. I want to do this. Is she in a relationship? These are the questions I ask. Is she in a relationship? She's 16, yeah? No. Is she going to get one? Yeah, most likely. Do you know the probabilities of that probably breaking down? Yes. And they better not get my money is the next one. Yeah. And so we actually started there. And then out of that, we developed things. So for this client particularly, there was two folds that we were looking at. We were looking at asset protection, and we were looking at tax minimization. So we essentially got the lawyer and the accountant and me as the facilitator. And this is the importance of the role, yeah? I figured this out because, yes, on a statement of advice, it was ending up being recommend a will, power of attorney, and testamentary trust. But it's much more than that. I added in another strategy for this client, which was just simply, let's get your accountant and your lawyer in the room and discuss how we should structure this correctly from both a legal protection perspective and a tax minimization perspective, and I will facilitate it. So they end up, through the accountant and the lawyer and us, we kind of worked out that a family trust or a discretionary trust is best to hold these assets as they are today. They've got a testamentary trust for obviously their assets that they've accumulated now in their personal names, so that the money will flow into the testamentary trust for their daughter, but the money will accumulate in a family trust from this point outside of super, because they're maxing their caps. Yeah, we're talking about people that this is another avenue where they've got to put their money. And they also, technically, they want to stay in control of this, but give their daughter the benefits of that trust. Yep. So, as you know, as the daughter being a beneficiary, she has no legal entitlement to that money. Yeah. So they've got their control. So they've got a lot of, and when this went all played through, and so when it gets to the end result, the clients, they weren't high-fiving me about the investment that we put them in. They weren't high-fiving me about what we did with their superannuation. They weren't high-fiving me about the insurance policies. That was boring in their expectation. They loved that I got their accountant in the room. They loved that I got their lawyer in the room and I facilitated that. And I want to take this one step further. After being with an accountant for so long, they ended up getting rid of their accountant because they realized that their accountant wasn't up for the job. Now, I know this is shocking, but they're very loyal people, and I commonly see this, yeah? But we're talking about, so they just were used to it. But I kind of say this, it's imagine being with a personal trainer and you never getting a six-pack. That's what your goal was. Your goal was to get a six-pack. You listened to the personal trainer, you did whatever you do, and you never got a six-pack. Well, when you connect all the dots up, they ended up realizing that the personal trainer wasn't necessarily the best. And they went and saw another one who they were absolutely happy with. And why I'm raising this is that clients are also getting smarter. Yeah. The reason why our industry was held up with all of this regulation problems and whatnot was that, and I mean this, the industry forgot about the client.
Yeah.
What does the client want?
I mean, I would say the same of the legal industry to a degree. We've got the same problem with our insurers.
We forgot the client. What does the client want? The client ultimately wants. If I reverse engineered this now and I sat the clients down, I said, now you've gone through the whole process, what do you actually want? And what do you feel good about? We feel good that we've got a plan to make sure that our daughter's taken care of. Like that would probably be their number one thing. And we have a plan in place to protect our assets, not just for her, but if she has kids, that for their kids and whatnot. So my connection now with that family is now beyond my direct client. It's now the daughter. And that's just one client, and that's an involvement. I've got many clients now that we work with where we've got an intergenerational connection in their lives, to the point where clients are saying, listen, we want to change our, backup executor, or they're putting me in roles now to make sure that, because they go and they say to me, John, who understands what we really want? Who has an independent view that sits outside of our family? As you know, as a lawyer, most of the issues happen when families are involved, and they want that person to sit in an independent state, but understand what the clients actually want even when they're not around. So soon as we started doing that, Cara, the game changed. And I mean that because clients no longer saw us as a, that I hate to use the word.
Service provider.
Yeah, it wasn't a service provider anymore. I'm part of the family. Like, and I'm happy with sharing. I've got two lovely boys who I'm a proud father for. And when the kids got born, it was like inundated with gifts for them. Yeah, and I'm not talking that as in to blow my trumpet or whatever. It was meaning like the cards that were written were, you're a part of the family. And I think for me, and talking about that journey of that 14-year-old kid that started, sometimes I feel so touched because I think that I've finally got that connection. And it actually came from estate planning. It didn't come from cash flow or investments and things like that. It was actually understanding what the estate wants. Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow. I mean, just that is such a beautiful story, and you've just hit the nail on the head about why I'm so passionate about the role of the advisor in estate planning, because it rarely happens with an estate planning transaction between a lawyer and a client, because it's just a one-off. So what did those clients, the one you just mentioned as the case study, what did they come to see you for? Was it just investment advice or super advice? Like they walked in or they booked the initial appointment? What motivated them?
I actually love it, and I'm laughing because I still remember the conversation. I nearly actually kicked the clients out of the meeting, to be honest with you. Because and I'm very, as you can tell, I'm very straightforward. But essentially, they were the typical clients. I want to invest. I expect a return of this and da da da. Like they were actually very difficult clients at the start. And I said, listen, sorry, you aren't for me, and I remember opening the door, yeah, and I'm still sitting down, so you can understand how Anyway, and the wife was a bit pushed back. She was like, oh, maybe we've taken this a bit too far, like, you know, and I said, and she goes, you know, what do you actually do, John? And she kind of paused. So I went through my spiel, but she wanted to kind of hear it again.
Yeah.
And I said, I change people's lives. That's what I'm here to do. I'm not here to, you know, promise you a return. I'm not here to do this. I'm not here to do that. I do what I do because we get results from following a plan. So I need to ask you again. Don't tell me about what investments and da-da-da-da. What do you want? And usually what people say when what do you want? I want holidays, I want cars, and I have to go deeper, yeah? Let's be honest. If you're going to do the job properly, you got to get to the bedrock, yeah? They want to obviously make sure that they're financially fine, but they got a daughter, yeah? They got one daughter. That's all they've got. And she's their world. And when we talk about that, it was all about that. And so they came for investment advice, essentially, but they didn't know what they want. They came in with I use the doctor analogy always, yeah? It's like someone comes in with a chest pain, yeah? They don't come to the doctor and say, all right, listen, I've got to have open heart surgery. I need to do this, and this, yeah? So they came in with chest pains, yeah? All good, they had chest pains. But what we found out was it wasn't really the chest where the problem was. We just found out there was signals coming from the neck or whatever it was, yeah? And still got the same result, still very happy, getting results from what they need to do. But yeah, they definitely did not walk in to discuss estate planning, let's put it that way.
And I can imagine approaching the estate planning discussion the way that you did. It was so much more powerful and effective than, okay, we've got your super and your life insurance and your investments sorted. Now you need to do a will.
Yeah, it's not.
And then
like
that's it. There's a one, you know, it's in the statement of advice at the end, the last section or whatever. You've got to get your will done as well. Like, it's just a completely different conversation by the sounds of it.
Exactly. So when you're talking about a will, let's break this right down if we want to do this properly. For most people, a will is just a document. It's got a few names in it based on a template, and it kind of sits in a drawer and never get done. But if we just phrase it a different way and say, listen, we've gone on this journey together. Yeah, we want this all to happen. As soon as you die, I don't have you to tell me the story, to tell me what you want to happen. We need to make sure this story is documented. And then if you're not with us, if you're with us but don't have the capacity to, we still need your story to continue. So I still need to work with your power of attorney. I still need to work with. So all an estate planning that from the will and from the power of attorneys and those documentation, that is the extension of our story together. Yeah. So yeah,
wow. I love that.
Yeah, I don't see it as a document because, and I think that's what changes things. If you look at a financial plan, for example, and people used to get fixated. I still remember this. It's like, oh, we create great financial plans and clients pay for a financial plan. A financial plan is a legal document that we provide a client that stipulates the story that we've provided to them. Now, that means nothing if it's not executed well. Exactly the same as an estate plan. Yeah. So all these documentation are, let's be honest, it's a lot of legal jargon. Yeah. All of it is the stories that they want for their life.
I love that story analogy and the way that you explain it to. I mean, I can imagine that it's an easy sell, right? Like you could close them every time based on that.
Yeah. And we're also getting, and the thing is as well too, Tara, it's also, imagine them, so we get a lot of client referrals, okay? And we get obviously brothers and sisters and whatnot. And it's because when our clients they're now advocates, they're saying to their brother or their sister, he didn't ask me what I thought he was going to ask me. He asked me questions that probably no one's ever asked me before in my life. And we documented that, we put them down, we've got a plan and we're executing on that and we're accountable for that. And I've also now got the peace of mind that even if I'm not around, that's still going to happen. And before COVID's been a bit tough because obviously in regards to seeing new clientele, and I get it, yeah. But just so you can kind of understand what we're talking about here, I was booked out probably about 2 months in advance prior to COVID. And I'm not saying that, like I said, to blow my trumpet. It was literally because the story's so powerful, because we care. And that my whole team is based on client first, caring about them while they're alive and even when they're dead.
I love it. So in your case study that you talked us through just before, so not only did you do, by the sounds of it, a full service advice solution for them in the end, but you locked yourself in as keeping those funds or that wealth under your management for the next generation by, you know, really being the point of call for the daughter. You sort of put yourself in as the linchpin or the trusted advisor with the accountants and the new accountant and the lawyer and the daughter and the family members. That's so powerful.
Yeah, but what we find, Tara, is that what clients typically do now, and it's amazing that they do this, so I'm not taking this lightly, is they'll grab the daughter, we'll be on a Zoom session these days, and they'll be like, sit on this meeting. And this daughter will be like 16. And it's not to understand what's going on, let's be honest, but it's like, this is John. Something happens to us, John. Yeah. And, you know, we in your training, especially like when we did the Art of Estate Planning course and even in other studies that I've done, is that's the goal. That's the goal for us as advisors, that, you know, when they're reading out a will or whatever it happens, is she knows. It's like I picture in my head, like, imagine the will getting read out and there's like this business card of John that's like stapled on it. Yeah. That's what it is. And I think that a lot of people maybe miss that opportunity. I'm finding a lot of my friends that are in the game now are kind of, you know, doing it. I think there's a lot of good advisors that are doing it as well. And I think for the ones that don't do it or are maybe scared to do it, it's not scary. Yeah, it's the most fulfilling thing you'll do. And I think, Tara, maybe, you know, through your education and your voice, and I think now, you know, even my voice and a lot of other voices that we've got in the industry now, I think we're also making people aware of what they can do. And I now am thinking probably the biggest hurdle for me in regards to taking that leap from not doing it or doing it very basic, which was just do your binding noms and your wills and whatnot and leaving it there, to actually executing it and having a plan in place and doing it the way we're doing it now, is I think the industry as a whole was very poor in educating advisors on what they can actually do. That's the gist of it. It's like we're very, very good at teaching people what they can do in the investment space or what they can do in the insurance space. But it was like, can an advisor actually tell a client to own something in a particular structure? And it was only until I was digging deeper that I actually said, oh yeah, I can do it. Like I went onto the TPB website, looked onto the tax practitioners board, you know, looked into FZAIA, looked into all of this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, there's like, if anything, I actually should be doing it, which goes on to my kind of next point. And I know we spoke about this offline, and it's a topic that I've been speaking to a lot of advisors about now. Standard 6 of the FZAIA Code for financial advisors states in there that we need to see the long-term impacts of our advice, essentially. So when we're talking about the long-term impacts, are we just talking about, and I haven't cleared this up, are we talking about the long-term impacts just on them? Are we talking about the long-term impacts that they could have on their estate? So if we're holding things, like let's take a basic situation. Client wants to invest $500,000, yeah? And we as the advisor, let's just exclude super, let's say we've maxed that out for now, and we just assume to own the assets in either individual names or joint names. Let's just say we do that. And later on down the track, something happens, they don't like you, and they decide to come after you and submit a complaint that says the advisor didn't look into alternative ownership structures. They were aware of the kids that were there. There was ability for them to set it up in a particular structure. They just never looked into it. I can see this easily happening. And so we've actually implemented in our process that we make sure we speak to the accountant and the lawyer on any ownership structures. And clients get it. They understand the step. It's a bit of a delay in the process. But I think with what the regulator is trying to achieve from this, I think it's a really good one. I don't think we should just be assuming, oh, we want it in Jeff's name or we want it in Mary and Jeff's name. You know, is there alternatives? Is there other ways? And if you're not the expert, that's okay. Leverage on the experts. Like, I don't come out here and say, oh, I'm an accountant, I know everything about tax. No, I say to the client, listen, let's have a chat with your accountant. Let's jump on a Zoom call. Let's map this out, try to get the lawyer in at the same time. If not, we'll kind of repeat the conversation, come in from both and act as that facilitator. And I think that one, like I said, that FSAIA and the law, I think wants us to do it. But I think as well too, we've been poorly educated in actually what we can do. From a industry perspective as well.
Yeah. I mean, you've hit the nail on the head, I think, with the phrase facilitator. Mm-hmm. To me, that's such a powerful role for a client to have a facilitator who understands the advice that may need to be brought into a situation. It doesn't mean you have to be giving it. You just mm-hmm. need to identify it and then bring in the special purpose advisors. Mm-hmm. The FSAIA thing, which is, that's only been around for a couple of years.
Start of the year.
Start of the year. To me, it's like, what's the point of getting the life insurance and super and investments sorted if they don't end up in the right hands down the track? And I mean, yes, you've got the legal obligations under FSAIA, but also just, going to the core of why are you even bothering? Like, if it's about achieving these goals and wealth accumulation for a bigger purpose, like leaving a legacy, mm-hmm. why bother if we don't make it end up in the right hands at the end of the day?
Correct. And I think that, like, this whole code that we're talking about, it's a code of ethics. Yeah. It's not a step-by-step guide in regards to the way that you should give advice. This is people kind of coming together and saying, this is where we want the standard to be. And the standard looks at the long-term impacts of advice. And long-term impacts of advice goes hand in hand with estate planning. And so, moving forward, Tara, we've become, and my team has become even more obsessed with estate planning and how we can utilize it and how we can really structure it. And I think that, we're putting ourselves together with, as many good accountants and lawyers as we can, because clients need to have good advisors, and that's the gist of it. There's a saying, my dad used to tell me when I was young. He's like, John, if you want to do any good in business, you got to have a good accountant and a good lawyer. Yeah, that was his thing. And I go back to him now, and I think I've added to the one, and a good financial advisor as well. But the three working together can do wonders in regards to a client situation, and while they're living, and even beyond them. Their kids, their grandkids and whatnot. And, like I said, I'm a proud father, and I look at myself and I usually only do what I do for myself. And, what am I doing it for? And I kind of ask myself the same question. And, do I want my things structured correctly? Yes, I do. Do I want to make sure that I've got good asset protection? Yes, I do. Do I want to make sure, what I want to happen actually happens? Yeah, with the highest amount of certainty, I want that to happen. And I guess, in everything, there's uncertainties. Family laws can kind of, cut through a lot of this stuff. But, we try and create the best probability and work as a facilitator, because the financial advisor, I think, plays a pivotal role in that facilitation, because we not only understand their financials, I think we understand their personal and their personal goals, and their. I think they tell us a lot more than they might tell the lawyer or what they might tell the accountant. And so, yeah, I think we have a really, really important role as a facilitator with some really good accountants and lawyers.
I mean, this isn't about you giving legal advice. Like, it's not. There's at no point in the process are you trying to remove the legal piece from the process or give advice that you shouldn't have. But people just aren't getting their estate planning done otherwise. And having, they're already sitting down and talking to you about their planning and their goals and ultimately their legacy, even if they don't think that's what they're doing when they're working with their financial advisor. You guys are the experts at having those types of conversations. And bringing in the estate plan as part of that, to me, it's just a no-brainer. I really believe that this is the future for estate planning.
And I've known good advisors who have become great advisors by nailing this. And, this is where the boutique advisor, I think, goes into that kind of family office scenario, because they get this right. They might not even know that they're doing it right, but it's that from the client's perspective. It's like this guy or lady or whatever understands the family, understands the, and that's what we're trying to achieve, and we're still learning every day. There's constant things that we're doing, but I think that we've seen a very, very big improvement in our relationships with our clients, which, as I've probably repeated over and over again, we're obsessed with. But as well too, they have become advocates, and not asking for it. Like, I think when we first started out in business, it was like, do you know anyone? Do you know anyone? Do you know anyone? Now it's not. It's like, John, can you help X, Y, and Z, and I hope for all of my advisors, because I know that they're really good, and, accountants and lawyers as professionals. I think it's just understanding the client's needs much, much better, going in a deeper conversation. And for advisors, estate planning is just, I think, that next step.
So would I be right in saying, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but compared to sort of the more traditional way that you would approach estate planning, adding it on at the end of the process, passing comment or a sentence in the statement of advice, to how you're doing it now, were you leaving money on the table back then?
A lot. Well, think about the process. So if you think about it, when I'm sitting with a client, even if it's writing it down or visually or whatever, I'm mapping out the family tree first. So I'm like, okay, before I get to, I want to get to know you, which is what we do really well, fact finds, I'll get that. Usually, actually, I get all their financial information before they even see me these days. Yeah. And so in the first session, it's just like, all right, let me just get this for a second. All right, we've got Jeff, we've got Mary, we've got I'm in my mind, as soon as I see them, I'm estate planning. And I'm like, 16-year-old, not in a relationship, or 2 kids, relationship, I'll go to the point where I'm like, listen, I don't mean to be forthcoming, but how's the relationship here? And the answer you'll hear is not necessarily what you think you're going to hear, but you need to know it, yeah? Oh, actually, Mark and Belinda aren't well at the moment, Rachel's doing okay, we're pretty secure on that, but it is a bit of a concern to us, we don't really, just by asking a question in regards to just, and I always obviously come up front, I'm like, listen, I don't ask you anything just because I want to know. Yeah, I'm asking for a reason. And when I kind of map out all that, so I'm starting with kind of estate planning first, really, because I'm trying to understand the family mapping. Then we get into goals and aspirations. And it goes without saying, do you want these goals and aspirations to continue beyond you?
Yeah. Obviously.
They're never going to say no.
Yeah.
I do not want that for my kids. No, I want all my money to be exhausted. No, they don't want that. They usually either want the... Yeah. So
I love it. I love it. So, I mean, I knew we would have the same philosophy because you've done the Art of Estate Planning course, and that's the same. But, you know, you've just articulated the power of estate planning so well. So, is there anything else that you wanted to add? I feel like you've sort of covered a lot of bases there. But before we sort of wrap it up,
I think it's just for anyone. Like, you know, I'm a pretty approachable guy, and I know it's sometimes a bit daunting going into an area that you may not fully feel confident in going into. Reach out. You know, obviously, you know, Tara, you've been a great even resource for myself, but you know, everyone like who's in the group, you know, just hit me up if you're a lawyer or you're an accountant or you're a financial advisor. You know, contact me. If you're an accountant that wants to, you know, work with a financial advisor that does this, you know, I'm happy to do it. And if there's someone in your local area, you know, I've been in the industry long enough, I could even point you in that direction. I think that, you know, working together for the end goal for us, which is making our clients happy, you know, I'm a resource for that. And hopefully we change the industry to keep, or continue to change the industry to keep focusing in this area. But, you know, my comments are, don't think about estate planning as the last thing to do. Think about estate planning as the first thing to do. Because even though a client won't come in there and say, I want to do this, they don't wake up in the morning usually and go, oh, I need to get my estate planning done. You know, build that a part of the journey, build that a part of the story, and you will see wonders.
So can you tell everyone a bit about your business? So you're based in Melbourne. Do you work just for Melbourne clients or Victoria or nationally? And what's it called? And how can they get in touch with you?
Cool. So we're called AFA Group Wealth, or Australian Financial Advisors Group. So I started the business in 2009, just doing basic traditional. Obviously, even from this conversation, we do holistic advice, so kind of everything. There's, I think there's 8 or 9 of us. I keep forgetting the number. That kind of work based out of Essendon in Victoria, but we do service around Australia, even these days, around the world. You know, you're based in Zoom and stuff like that. We've got a lot of expats that are kind of everywhere. But I think.
Oh, are you still there, John?
Here.
We just lost you for a minute.
Yeah, that's all right. Dodgy Melbourne network.
Everyone's on their Wi-Fi at home.
Must be. Yeah, we do holistic. We serve across the board. We really focus on clients that I would say have the mindset that they want to change their lives. I think that's the biggest one. So if a client came to me and said, you know, John, I just want to roll over my super, we'd nicely probably tell them there's probably someone else, and we're okay with that. We're very much strategic, goal-based advisors, focused on changing people, their lives, and obviously their whole family's lives. So that's a bit about me and the business. But yeah, it's been a pleasure, Tara, as well, to getting on here and making people aware of the potential of estate planning. I really appreciate it. You know, one of the things that is a passion for me is changing our industry in the right way, and being authentic. As you can probably see, I'm usually not the guy that sits in suits and has fake stuff. I'm in the baby room that most people won't know, but you know, I think you know, just. Yeah, I reiterate again, I'm here to help change the industry in the right way, and let's nail estate planning in the right way, and continue to focus on our clients.
Oh, John, I am so grateful for you taking the time out of your day, because I know you're busy, even if it's not, you know, busy in your business, busy, you should, you know, spending your time with the kids if you're not working. So I'm really grateful for you taking the time to share your story and your philosophy about estate planning with the group. Your passion absolutely shines through, and I think you're a fantastic example of the future of estate planning for this country. So thank you so much. We haven't had any questions coming through. I imagine everyone's just going, whoa, maybe a little bit of mind blown. So if you do think of a question for John, or you're watching this after we've recorded it, throw your question up in the comments. We're both in the group. We'll do our best, even if it's something like, how did you get your licensee on board? Or, where do I even start? Things like that. If you are feeling inspired, put the question up and we'll keep an eye on things and keep the conversation going. But
I'll leave some of my socials on the bottom of the comments as well. So even if you wanted to directly message me or whatnot, you can hit me directly on the socials as well, and that way we can continue a conversation if you want to take something offline. Okay.
And the AFA group socials are doing a great job at the moment about promoting estate planning and all of that. So check it out. Just if you want a bit of inspiration about how do you use talking about estate planning in social media as a lead generator, I think you guys are doing a great job of that as well. So it's definitely worth checking out John's socials too. Well, we've gone over our half hour, so I might wrap it up. Thank you again for joining us, and thanks everybody for watching.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.